everyone. Welcome back to ReleDate. We're talking again about the Bachelorette, and the big event this week was hometowns. And so I know I mentioned last week that I thought we were going to focus a lot on how to introduce your partner to your family, when is an appropriate time to do that. Something else big came up that I want to focus on, and it all centers around Katie's relationship ending with Greg. And compatibility, what compatibility looks like, because there was some compatibility issues there that potentially caused their relationship to come to an end. And so I really want to focus on that today so that we have a good sense of what is compatibility and how you can assess for it in your own relationships. Before we get going on that, though, introduce your partner to your family when you feel it's appropriate. I know that's kind of a one-off. I did like a quick Google search just to see what information was being put out there about this. And honestly, it looks like I saw a couple suggestions. It was like, 4 to 5 months, that's when you introduce, or something along those lines. It's not really like a time. You can't really put a time frame on that. You've got to go more with how you feel your relationship is. Have you all talked about potentially introducing each other to your families? Like what other things are happening there that may be it may make it a good decision to introduce your partner to your family. So I know that that's quick. Maybe I'll do a longer video about that at some point, but I really do want to dive into this idea of compatibility. And we have a visitor. Let me jump her on the ground. Okay. We saw a really, really, really emotional breakup between Greg and Katie. And so I want to back this up to this conversation they had after Greg's hometown date. So they were sitting on the couch and Greg essentially poured his soul out to Katie. Said, I'm falling in love with you. Like, this isn't about a rose for me. It's about like you and me in the end. This is what I need. It's you and me in the end. And Katie was listening to all this, but her response to all this was something along the lines of like, I just like to look at you. Like, I just like looking at you. That, as we saw later on, was not what Greg needed. We saw him get frustrated in the moment. I think my therapist senses kind of went off there as soon as, they're staring at each other. And as soon as Katie said that to Greg kind of like stepped back, physically removed himself a little bit from the conversation by moving his body, repositioning himself. And that's important. Like those small cues like that are important because he was obviously expecting something different than he was getting. Got my buddy. So what does this mean in terms of compatibility? There are a lot of different levels that come to compatibility. And if you Google this, again, I like to Google it just to see what information is being put out there by people that may not be professionals or people that may not be relationship experts. One of the things I saw on there that kind of cracked me up was zodiac signs. So you're compatible based on what zodiac sign you have. And surprise, surprise, we're not going to go into that one today. Some of the other ones, though, are like emotional compatibility, intellectual compatibility, sexual compatibility. There's all these different pieces to this. And so as you could see in that moment, if you had to think about those categories that I just listed off, what do you think was the lack of compatibility between Greg and Katie in that conversation they had after hometown? And I want to say that part of this is an emotional incompatibility, so that Katie was just not picking up on the signals that Greg was laying out. Katie's also having to be really, really guarded too, because she, like she's mentioned, has many, many guys here still. Well, 3. She has 3 guys here still, and doesn't necessarily want to open herself up in the same way that they are. But that becomes an issue with things like compatibility, just because of the fact that like Greg really needed to hear that to get assurance in his relationship. And when he's not able to get that causes problems. We saw that later on where he came back and said, like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I need to go home. And how upsetting that was for Katie to say, like, oh, well, I thought we were fine. I thought we were okay. Obviously they weren't. They're on a different page. So that's kind of the emotional compatibility aspect of it is him pouring his heart out and Katie being very guarded when it comes to how she is feeling about the relationship. Things like intellectual compatibility, I think we've seen with them. We've seen them be able to connect on levels about their dads who have both passed away, seen them connect about like other important topics of that sort. I'm sure there's conversations here that we haven't seen. If you're looking for intellectual compatibility in your own relationship, does it feel like you are like having the sorts of conversations that you want to be having? And I mean this not in terms of like related to the relationship necessarily, but maybe having conversations about the work that you do, or having conversations about politics, or having conversations about religion, like these sorts of things, like philosophical conversations, that really take a look at what you know and discuss that with your partner so that they can figure out, like, so that you can have an open conversation about it and feel like you are receiving what you're giving. And receiving what you're giving is important with all these different types of compatibility. So there's this, the other one being physical or sexual compatibility. And so that is, do we feel like we are giving and getting the amount of physical connection that we need? Are we able to connect physically? Do I feel safe when you give me hugs? Do I feel needed when you give me hugs? Are you accepting of the physical contact that I am giving you? So there's all these different pieces here, and it sounds like, or at least it looked like, Greg and Katie had like the physical aspect of the relationship down. But again, it's coming back to this idea that Katie was not in a position to open up emotionally. And she also didn't really pick up on what Greg was needing from her in the moment, even though Greg came back and described it later. So as heartbreaking as that breakup was, I think that Greg handled himself pretty well in the moment in terms of sharing with Katie what he was needing and being really honest about the fact that he wasn't getting it and was very frustrated. And I know Katie keeps on saying, like, just wait till the end, but the end is pretty much here. And he's still, like, that's the one piece that he felt like he needed. He got really realistic in terms of just talking about, like, I need this in order to move forward, and was not, or excuse me, really realistic in terms of just like, this isn't about a rose. This isn't about a game to me. This is about my relationship with you, which shows that he was in it probably for some good reasons. So I don't know, honestly, if we're gonna see Greg again. Curveballs have been thrown all over the place with this season, so I guess we'll have to wait and find out. But I know that there are still two really great men left. I know that Katie's very, very frustrated, so we'll all just have to wait and see what happens here, and see if Katie's able to find love, if it's with Greg or if it's with one of the other two men here. So yeah, join me in a couple weeks or after the next episode, and we'll get to talk about the finale, hopefully. Thank you all. I'll see you soon. Thanks for tuning in.